Hey everyone, we are officially live. I'm Mateo Cadena with TypeThursday Los Angeles chapter lead. I'm here with my dialogue lead, Mr. Michael.
Michael Mondragon, yes, indeed. Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited for tonight. We have a special guest. Let's get to this. Next. Welcome to TypeThursdayLA, a meeting place for people who love letter forms. We are next. Oh, before I take off, submit your questions today because we have a guest speaker. So drop your questions in the chat for a chance to be featured in our live stream. Next. We are a global organization. TypeThursday is all around the world, and we're bringing together type lovers from every single continent. Well, not every single one yet, but if you'd like to open your own chapter, just email us. Go to our website, typethursday.org. Next. TypeThursdayLA team is made possible by all of these amazing people we have, and thank them all for their time and service. If you'd like to be a volunteer, let me know. Los Angeles at typethursday.org. Email us. We need marketing. If you like to do marketing, social media, graphics, if you like to do promotion, if you like Instagram, Twitter, let us know. All right, next. This was us back when we could be in person, but we're stuck in these crazy times and this pandemic, and we're behind these walls. But Michael and I and the TypeThursday Los Angeles team have continued to do virtual events to try and bring everyone together to keep our community together and safe during these times where we have to be distant. Next. So it wouldn't be possible without our sponsors, all here in LA. And if you'd like to be a sponsor, we'd love to hear from you. Just go to our typethursday.org, contact us. But Hoffenmitz Milken Center for Typography, HMCT Art Center, Pasadena, has been wonderful to us. And they are a global sponsor. If you'd like to be a global sponsor, let us know. AIGA Los Angeles is an event partner, and they help us all the time. We love AIGA LA and the team over there making that possible. General Assembly as well. When we were in the ground in person, we often held events at General Assembly. If you're looking for things to do or thinking about a career change, check out General Assembly because they have boot camps that you can get certified in UX, UI, programming, coding, learn Python, introductory to product design, and all kinds of other classes. So give them a shot. Next. 2020 has been wild, but we've managed to keep going. And we hope to see you here November 20th or December 17th. Look out in December because we'll be doing a special format. We're definitely killing Zoom because we're sick of Zoom. We're all Zoom fatigued. And we're here on StreamYard coming to you live from wherever you wanted to click in. Facebook, YouTube, wherever. Next. So what's happening tonight? We're going to be in discussion with Stephen Coles. And we got a fundraiser for the Letterform Archive, where we're going to be raising money to help archive the Michael Stinson Annual Report Collection, which is celebrating the life of Michael and helping the Letterform Archive keep his collection on record. And lastly, we'll also have a TypeCrit session, and we'll see some character building in that as well. And we're super excited to bring it all to you tonight. Next. So without further ado, this is my outro, Michael Mondragon. You are my wonderful dialogue lead, and you'll be taking us through some memories to remind us of the great Michael Stinson and to celebrate the life that he led as a designer in our greater community and taught us about typography.
Thank you so much. Michael was not only my friend, he was my mentor, and he was an inspiration to me. We had a very short time together, but it was a very impactful. He was passionate about design, typography, everything that this community holds very valuable. He actually came into the design profession through the back door, as he puts it. He actually was an aerospace engineer. He was also very educated in physics and mathematics. I found out at a conversation of us going to Dodger Stadium one time that he was very early in his age, he was scoped out to be, go to college. Even, and I said it was the opposite for me. I was trying to figure out how I could go to college. So we were very opposite ends of the spectrum, but we came together through typography and design. So Michael was a teacher at the Laguna College of Art and Design, and his passion was teaching, and his students went on to do great things. I know one of his students went on to work at Pentagram, and I know that he was very, very overwhelmed with that, because as I said, we had a live chat last week that we talked about Michael, and I said it was like a baseball player coaching a baseball player, and he makes the major leagues. It was that kind of pride that he talked about when he talked about that student actually achieving something to that degree. He also embraced the online and teaching online and really putting his education and knowledge out there. Him and Rachel Elnar started Type Ed, which was a typography education, furthering that education. I know that there was a need for that. People that they were hiring actually didn't have the typography skills that they required to work for their agency. So they saw it as an opportunity to start teaching these types of things, and actually teaching some other things. Mark My Word was one of the courses that he and Rachel put together, taking marks. You can see the Marriott M, the Macy's in the My, and the Wendy's in the Word. But they would make, as a fun exercise, making other words out of it. Did you take any of the classes, Mateo?
So I took Type Ed with Michael and Rachel, and it was absolutely amazing. And what a smart idea to look around your community and see that, hey, there's this lack of knowledge right now in typography, because this generation of designers has been switched over to digital devices and to go all virtual. So we're not touching, lead type and then lining things up and putting them on a letterpress to run a print. Nothing's tangible anymore. So this was kind of the perfect, I think, program and education to put together for this generation of designers and others too, who just didn't know about typography. And like myself, all online for a lot of learning. So this in person was absolutely amazing, and yeah.
And I one of the funny stories that I'll just tell really quickly is they used to have a type 1, 2, and 3. So 1 being kind of like the entry level, and the 3 being the advanced class. So as a seasoned veteran of graphic design, I arrogantly took type 3 right away, only to be very humbled by as much. I didn't know as much as I thought I did. But what it did was it made me eager about to learn more about my own profession. I actually got excited about design again. And one of the things that Michael, for all of his teaching, for all of his mentorship, he never put himself out there as a designer, but Michael was a master designer. Everything that he touched was beautiful. It was impeccably typeset. The visuals went together. I actually was very fortunate enough to be one of the only people to take his brand apprenticeship course, where I learned a lot of Michael's secrets about how to properly make a brand guiding. A brand guide, and that process. It was a 12-week course, and I'm a better person for it. And he was actually into Aikido. He actually, if I'm not mistaken, this was a pro bono project that he did just to support the Aikido Center of Los Angeles. And he used, actually, when he taught at Adobe Max, we actually did a whole Aikido kind of ritual at the beginning, which was actually breathing. And I was talking to Julie Manthe, who's in the chat as well, from AIGALA. And she was one of the TAs for that class. And so, yeah, it was, again, he thought differently when it came to all this design. So yeah. Annual report is what we were talking about before, and archiving all of these. I'm not sure if you can see this very well, but I told him that this reminded me of the Beatles' White Album. but it's super more ornate than that. I mean, it was very like Michael to kind of come up with this concept. And if you're not, yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
It was like a ghost face emboss where it's raised off the page and you can see the textures. You could feel it with your hands. This was very tactical. You know, this was, we should also say that Michael practiced at the Aikido Center that he did the design for. And he was very grateful for the Aikido teaching and for martial art practice. So yeah, and we can see his passion for like just honing in his craft, his practice, meticulous thinking in his craft. Yeah.
Yeah. So if for people that don't know, these annual, they're like financial annuals. So these could typically be very boring, but these were actually things that they would send out to potential investors, and really kind of celebrating the years that these companies had. And again, they could have been really boring. But Michael made them very, for print, very interactive and very engaging. And you can just see from the visuals that they chose, the typography is impeccable. And so a lot of these annuals are now going to be kept for a long time at the Letterform, right? So can you tell us more about the initiative that we're trying to generate and raise money for?
Yes. So we are in the business of raising funds to support the archival process of Michael's collection. He donated to the Letterform archive, and it takes hands and manpower. And as we all know, we all need the ability to survive in this day and age. So raising funds to help them support the archival process of this collection that Michael donated. Yeah, and the annuals are so important because every company has this, enterprise has this. They are every year you're working on this, slaving away on this. This is the company at a glance, and this is a massive design endeavor if you've never had to design one before. And Michael was just a genius at it. He had it down to a science, and he loved typography. So this was totally his playing field when it came to design.
And we have some goals when it comes to this fundraising. So do you want to tell them a little bit more about that?
Absolutely, yes. So we are hoping to shoot for raising $1,000 between October and November. We're keeping the fundraiser open, and you can donate at paypal.me/TypeThursday, or we'll drop a link later to the Letterform archive. You can donate directly to their page as well through their website, and leave a note about Michael Stinson, and we'll know it's for the Michael Stinson collection.
Yeah. And we're not capping it at 1,000. We want to raise as much money as we can. 1,000 is our goal, but we want to double that and then double it again. So we have a very special guest with us. Our guest speaker tonight is the editorial director and associate curator at the Letterform archive in San Francisco. He also co-publishes Fonts in Use and Typography. He also wrote the book Anatomy of Type, which was previously was previously a creative director at Font Shop. I actually have his book right here. I love it, and I swear by it. I use it probably every week because I have to refer back to it quite regularly. So I'm going to bring on Stephen right now. Welcome, Stephen. How are you?
Welcome, Stephen.
I'm great. Thank you very much. I've not heard anybody use the book that often. I'm very honored.
My pleasure. I love it.
Michael might be a first, and I might be a second, Stephen, because this is just a book we all need.
That's very nice. Thank you so much.
As Rachel says, Stinson's #1 recommended book. So it comes from high praise. High praise.
That's very sweet.
That's like New York's bestseller right there. Okay, you got to grab it. New York Times #1.
Well, I actually just happened to get a few copies, signed copies that you can order from the official website if you want. So if anybody doesn't have it, you can go to typeanatomy.com and grab one of those.
Typeanatomy.com. I'll be going there tonight.
So Matteo, you had some questions that before we and please put some questions in the chat for Stephen. But we had some initial questions we wanted to ask.
Yeah. So just a reminder, everyone, if you are in the live stream right now, hanging out with us, taking time out of your night, then please let us know. What were your typography struggles? What advice would you like? What questions do you have about the Letterform archive? we're here and we're on Q&A. So my first question for you, Stephen, is what drove you to sit down and write this manual for the anatomy of typography? That's a rabbit hole. You went down the rabbit hole.
Yeah. Well, my life is kind of a rabbit hole, so I guess I was just kind of pushing it on everybody else. Well, those anatomy charts have always fascinated me. Often when you get a book about in some kind of primer for typography or textbook, there's often a section on type anatomy. And I've always loved those. I come from actually bird watching as my first love, and in bird guides have the same thing. They have an anatomy of the bird at the front, so you know all the parts of the bird and you're able to then identify them. So it's always been kind of something that's fascinated me. But the reason that I made the book is that those charts that you often have in those textbooks are just usually showing one typeface or maybe two or three. But it doesn't always give you a good sense of how typefaces differ, why you might choose one over another, what similar typefaces might have in common and how they differ. So it was a way to kind of zoom in on the details of some of my favorite typefaces, some of the most popular typefaces, and give people a sense of all their individual parts that make up the whole.
That's awesome. I absolutely love that because starting as a kid, loving art, I looked at the anatomy books of animals, looked for owls, looked for birds, looked for different animals, and you learn a lot just by looking at the way these designers laid out those books, because they have to teach you and show you visuals alongside that so the concepts stick. And so I think that's a great foundation to start to get your visual inspiration unknowingly, I guess, right? And then to go to this and get inspired and bring your own manual to life. That is just awesome. And Michael, do you have a question?
Yeah. My question is, as a more seasoned designer, I've been collecting fonts since the probably early 80s. I would say the middle 80s. So I have about 20,000 fonts, like literally. But of course, there's only ones that I use for my work. So, but there's ones that I probably have that I'll never use again, just because of they would seem dated in whatever I'm using it for. So my question is like, do I part with these fonts, or how can I use them eventually? Is there a practical use for fonts that maybe are dated?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I love that. This is what I love about typeface design is it's like other crafts in which there are designs that are timeless, that we call them classics because they survive hundreds of years and they're still usable, still relevant. And then there are those that are of the moment. They're like fashion. They have a particular look and feel that seems to respond to the current time. So that's just that's how type is. And there are going to be some typefaces, usually display faces, those that we use for headlines, that you're not going to use forever. And that's one of the things that makes them fascinating in the moment. And I think that's fine. It's fine if the typeface is just for now.
Definitely.
Yeah. I love that. It's like fashion, it's like, yeah, it's seasonal. It's also, based, stuck within a range of the culture. It's a moment you capture, and it's valuable in and of itself to, look back to, because it always comes back around too.
That's true. Yeah. Things do come back. That's the other thing, Michael, you say, what should I do with these? I mean, in 20 years, some of them will be back in style. I mean, it's just like fashion pendulums, the style pendulum that swings back and forth. Same with type. There's a lot of stuff that was really popular in the 70s, 80s, 90s that's super hot now again.
Oh, that's a good point. What's old is new. It's someone else that'll be totally new to see, like fonts from the 90s. Definitely. What's your view on variable fonts? Do you like them, or are you scared? I'm scared of them, quite frankly. I don't know how to use them.
Well, I wouldn't be scared of them. I would think of it as we've always had these transitions in type technology that have made life actually easier for us. And at first, those who are used to the current technology found it to be a little bit overwhelming because they have to learn a new tool. But one example of this is when we went from like phototype or rub down lettering to digital type. And suddenly you had a tool on your desktop that you could resize to any size, and you could do so much more with it. It took a lot of people a lot of time to learn the new tool, but it was valuable. And I think this is actually another one of those, even though it's still digital type, it's another one of those kind of jumps in technology, because you're no longer thinking about things in terms of individual styles or weights. You can now think of them as a continuum. So instead of light, medium, bold, you can think, well, I've got one family and I can decide how light or bold to make it. And that's what makes variable fonts just much more flexible. And it's just a matter of how good the support is, how well you can use it in the apps you want to use it in. But those apps will make it easier, and pretty soon it'll just feel natural. You'll think it's kind of quaint that we actually had individual styles for all of these different weights and widths and optical sizes.
Yeah, and the equivalent is almost like working with video in a timeline where you got the beginning and you place a key, right, and you got the middle and or you have the endpoint, beginning point, end point. Or if you ever worked in animation of any kind, right, or 3Ds, you have that timeline that you can adjust, and you have you're thinking of things on a continuum. You define your beginning state, whatever let's say the skeleton or the bones of that type look like, right, the anatomy of that type. And then you have can expand it, make it wider, and just slide and keep going wider and wider and wider. Mm-hmm. It's honestly, it's super cool. I had the honor at HMCT, one of our global sponsor actually, where Gloria had one of her students at the time who showed this variable font that they were working on, and it was absolutely mind blowing. And he had such a wonderful approach, because he started from the skeleton. It's the way he thought of it. Okay, type is we model it after our own human form, our own experience. And the type is an extension of ourselves. And so he modeled the skeleton of the type of the whole alphabet, and then he at its basic core structure and thought about it that way and built on top of it. And the things that he did were just amazing, and even got tangible to making shapes that. I forget how he did it. Cut out light pieces of paper and made the letter form itself of the font on the wall, and you could look at it straight head on, and you saw the font. You saw it exactly as he had depicted it, basically. And then as you walked to the left or to the right, you would see it the width get wider to one side or the other, and you could play with those adjusters in the software to edit the type if you wanted to. So it was absolutely wonderful, because he just brought this real world analogy that you could see what a variable font is, and the real world, right? And then he recreated that for you in this virtual play space, essentially. It was amazing.
Yeah, we're going to start thinking about typefaces as kind of concepts rather than individual fonts. This is not Gotham bold, but this is Gotham the concept. What can that typeface do? You get bolder, get wider, but maybe it can get have a skew angle that changes. Maybe it has optical sizes, like I said before, from text weights to display weights. But maybe it does things that are purely about animation or about augmented reality, things like that. So there's a lot more flexibility that comes into play when you're thinking of it as a concept rather than these individual static styles.
Yeah,
that's a very interesting way of looking at it. Rachel makes a good point. Typefaces use is not only about style; it's about performance. So that's a great point.
Rachel, you got to get up here on the stage with me. But that's absolutely true. It saves a lot of data when you can put in all of these instructions mathematically rather than as Bezier shapes, which is how they are as individual styles.
Yeah, so their file size is significantly smaller, which is a huge breakthrough for where we're at in tech and web apps and devices and loading websites and loading apps, because sometimes it's slow to load, and it could be your images, but as well as your fonts, because those are packaged, it's all things that you have to download. So it totally is. We're seeing some amazing things, and I'm super excited to see extended reality typography. I've seen some apps where you hold your phone up and you see typography or letters. You can type the message, and it's boom, pops up there right in front of your table, in your kitchen or something like that. Cool stuff is happening with tech and type.
Yeah. So we actually have some great questions in the chat. Sarah says, when a bunch of typefaces look really similar, how do you personally choose a face?
Great question. So that actually goes back to the idea of looking at a typeface as more than just one weight or one, you're looking maybe at the regular style. Think about that typeface as a family. Does it have all of the weights and styles you might need, or is it a variable font, whereas the other ones aren't? Think of it as a product. You've got licensing to consider. So maybe they look very similar, but one has a much more agreeable licensing agreement. It's easier to embed on the web or whatever. And then think about it in terms of, this is like a personal thing for me because I know a lot of type designers. Think of it in terms of which one is made by a living designer. Am I going to support somebody's livelihood by buying this font over this one because they're alive, they earn royalties on it, or I'm buying it directly from them, versus maybe something from somebody who designed it 400 years ago and it's really some big company somewhere that's earning the royalties on it. So I take those things into account. I mean, there's lots that goes into just looking at the shapes and what, how does it look, how's it going to perform for what you want to do, but there's also all these kind of external factors that go into choosing type too.
Yeah, and the reason why I have this book and I go through it a lot is it always reminds me every time I look at it that there's a lot of craftsmanship and a lot of expertise that goes into this, and it doesn't. So you should support that. Let these designers design more, and supporting them and buying these fonts is a way to do it. Another question from Maxwell. On the flip side of my question, that me being me, what advice do you have for beginner designers for building a typeface collection and how to design great type compositions with limited faces?
Well, that's that's kind of the question I've been trying to answer most of my career, because I have really just been out there trying to connect people who make type to people who use it. And the fact that there's so many options out there, there's hundreds of new typefaces every month that come out. It can be overwhelming. And so that's why Typographica started, because it was a way to review typefaces, to do this annual best typefaces of the year or our favorite type of the year, where I invite people to write about what excited them that year. Building these kinds of curated collections helps people at least get started. Like, what is it that is worth starting my collection with? And then they can start to venture further as they learn those designers or those foundries, or start to get to see type in a new way. But I really recommend starting with resources like Typographica or Fonts in Use, where you can see how the type is actually used in the real world. And that way you're not looking just at the way it's been marketed, but also how other people use it, and you can get a sense of whether it's, it really functions in real work.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So Laura has a great question that another one that designers have. My biggest fear working with type is not accepting that my superior or director will always say to do it their way, which may or may not be better. And the fear is that they will never say that's it, great, good, send it to print. Wow, that takes me back to my whole career as well.
I think that lies in all of us. That big fear lies in all of us, Laura, and it can paralyze us sometimes to not even pick up the project, right, or to start on it. So I'm curious to see what Steven's thoughts are.
Well, I think it's something that we don't often learn in design school, and that is how to articulate our choices, how to not just how to design something, but then how to defend it or how to explain it. And I think that's one of the skills that we really need to develop more in new students. I think that the more you learn, the more history you learn, the more you learn about where typefaces come from, the more you start to understand why they were designed the way they were, then you can start to be more articulate about your choices when you use them. So one just small example is, you could do a lot of research into picking a typeface that has some historical connection to whatever project you're working on. Maybe it's local connection, or maybe it's about that time in history. And you learn about it from maybe the type designer who's written a nice description or essay about it. And you can bring that into your defense of your choice. You can say, this is the reason this type was made. This is why I selected it. And you're backing it up not just by the way it looks, but also by some real historical credibility.
Yeah, I had a creative director who told me one time, the right font for the right job. And I always will remember that. So if you're going towards trends, I believe, sometimes you're not going to hit the mark, and you're not going to resonate with your client or your creative director, whoever you're working with. But if you can defend your type choices, I think that helps a lot too, and not fight about it, but say, hey, like we're doing a Halloween font. Well, this font was one of the traditional like fonts in the medieval or whatever. You actually can back up whatever choice that you made, and if you don't have that, you really don't have anything to stand on. So I think it's also educating yourself as a designer about the fonts that you're using as well.
Yeah, there are lots of other reasons why it could be the right choice. Rachel had a great comment. There's lots of other. You think about all the ways that it suits the purpose. Is it readable, legible? Does it express what you want it to express? And it can even go back to some of the things I talked about earlier in terms of licensing. Does it have the right license for this use? Does it is it something that the client will be able to easily license and use? Things like that can also come into play.
That's a great point. Those are conversation enders, by the way. Those types of issues. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you have the answers, you can you can back up those choices.
I loved Rachel's comment. Tell them why. Tell them the why, the big why. It benefits the audience for all these reasons, right? Readability, legibility, performance, right? Expression, hierarchy, history. You got all the big whys there.
Did you have any other questions, Matteo?
I think that's good. I think we can hand off to Stephen to present.
Okay, yes, please. We want to see your presentation. So go ahead and you can share, and I will put that on the screen.
Great, and I'll just be very brief. I want to just give kind of an overview of who the archive is, what we do. Are you seeing a learning archive on the screen?
Yes. Yeah.
Great. So this actually goes really well with what you were saying about Michael and his legacy. I mean, obviously, education was the most important thing to him. If it wasn't design, it was education. And that's what we've tried to do at the archive. We're collecting material around graphic design so that we can, so that other people can use it as an educational tool. And then at the same time, as people come to visit us or they use the collection, then we learn from that as well. And it becomes this really nice cycle of teaching and learning. So it's not one way, it's really a loop. So we're a museum, a library, a school, and a publisher. So we do all of these things all surrounding this collection of about 60,000 objects of design. And so these are just some examples of people visiting the physical archive back when we could do that. Both classes and team visits and things like that. It opened in 2015 as a private collection. Robert Saunders in San Francisco had been collecting for decades of calligraphy, typography, all kinds of graphic design. And he thought, it made sense to start a kind of a library / museum for this collection, because there aren't that many places in the world where you can learn or see something that's very targeted to just letter forms. You can see graphic design in an art museum, but usually that's not the focus in the art museum. Design museums often really focus on architecture or product design, but there wasn't a place that was really all about graphic design and typography. And so this is kind of an overview of the very broad collection that we have. You know, everything from cuneiform tablet down there at the bottom left and medieval manuscript to a leaf of the Gutenberg Bible, to avant-garde typography from Elazitsky, to wood type specimens, metal type specimens, psychedelic poster art, artist books, which are these really beautiful, interesting bindings and forms, and then lettering manuals and calligraphy and everything to do with handmade letters. And so this is just a picture of the periodical wall where we have hundreds of different runs of design and typography serials. Here's a kind of a sense of what a typical day used to look like back when we could invite people to the physical space. But it's really kind of a community center. And so if you ever can get up to San Francisco from LA and visit us after the pandemic is over, I really encourage you to do so.
I might take you up on that offer.
Please.
Yes.
So we do three main things. We preserve, we share, and we educate. So as far as preservation is concerned, and this goes into the way that the funds that are being raised to help preserve Michael's collection of annual reports, this really gives you a sense of what that money goes towards. These are type specimens. These are ephemeral specimens from mostly from the early 20th century, and we have thousands of these. We're really lucky to have this collection that started both with Rob's and also a Dutch collector named Jan Tollenaar. And what we do with these, rather than the way you often see them in a rare book library or museum, where they will put all the ephemera or small booklets into boxes, and then you can access them that way, but it's a little bit hard to navigate and to find what you need. What we do is we bag and board in a archival sleeve each individual specimen, and then we label it by the typeface and the designer and the foundry and the date that it was released, and that way it becomes this like record store of typographer's dreams. You go in and you can find exactly the typeface you're looking for, see its history, how it was meant to be used, how it was advertised when it first came out. And so a lot of the metal type that now, is part of our digital lives, or that has inspired the digital type that we use now, was released by advertising like this. And it makes us very happy, as you can see from Lawrence here, our intern at the time. And then what we also do is digitize this collection. So we have this really high-end 100 megapixel camera, and we take photographs rather than scan the material, because what we want to show is the kind of depth to the page and the edge of the book and the impression of metal type into paper. And so you can only do that really by photographing rather than scanning, because a scan kind of creates a flat image. But when you photograph with raking light, which is light coming from one side like this, what you get is more depth to the page. This is actually how fine art is photographed, so that you get a real sense of the texture of the object. So you can get a sense of this on our website. We recently posted a blog post that kind of shows a little video of how we do the digitization, and a kind of some of our standards that we have in photographing the work. We'll skip by some of this. This is just how we stage some of the rare books that we have in the collection for photography. Sharing. We have exhibitions. We've been, in the past, before we have our new space, which I'll tell you about in a second, in the past we exhibited material in other spaces. So on the right is visiting Typo Berlin with our exhibition of graphic design process. On the left is our old reading room, where we had a display there and a poster wall there that we'd often exhibit. We also publish books. The top row here is W.A. Dwiggins, A Life in Design. Dwiggins, if you don't know him, was a fascinating character, type designer from the early to mid 20th century who did all sorts of things, including making his own puppets. He was a marionettist and made his own puppets, and really funny, fascinating guy, but also an incredible type designer who made some of the most popular typefaces in use today, Electra, Metro, Caledonia. So we did a biography of his work using the material in the collection. On the bottom there is Jennifer Morla. If you like annual reports, which we've been talking about, or you like corporate design or interesting ways to present a brand or a company, Jennifer Morla's work is really amazing. She's worked for Levi's and Nina Paper and SF MoMA and Herman Miller. And so this is her monograph that just came out last year. Has this incredible vacuform cover, and it's a really amazing tome of nice graphic design. And then the other way we share is through the online archive, which I'll give you a quick demo of later. Educate, we've got, we take class tours when you can visit in person. So here's an example of a class that we taught weekly last year for California College of the Arts. It was an MFA class in the history of type. And each week we would set a table filled with material from that period of history that we were teaching. So this table is all about the 60s and 70s and independent publishing and phototype and rub down lettering and kind of counterculture design. We also have Type West, which is a program in type design. If you want to learn type design, it's one of the few places in the world that you can spend a full year learning how to create your own fonts. And it's led by James Edmondson of Ono Type Company. And then we have some other really great teachers next year, Graham Bradley, Lynn Yun, and Kel Trofton will all be teaching next year. And it'll be online, so anybody can attend. So if you're in LA, you don't have to come up to San Francisco to apply to Type West for the year program. You can apply online now at letterfromarchive.org/education. And those applications are open until the end of the month. And you can learn all about the program there. It's really a great way to get an in-depth instruction in type design and learn both the theory and the history and then the technology and tools to make your own fonts. And then one of the things about this program that makes it unique is that unlike a lot of other education programs for type, we're backed by this incredible collection. So we have these type specimens from all the way back to the 16th century up to the current type specimens created now. And students can use these as resources in person when we meet in person, but also online when we've digitized them. So these are just some examples of those. We also have a collection of master drawings from the Linotype company. There's a blog post about this on our website, but these are about 40,000 individual letter drawings from early 20th century from the Linotype company, showing how each letter form was actually drawn that then would be created into a matrix for a Linotype machine. And there's a lot that you can learn from this. I was talking about optical sizes earlier. This is a good demonstration of that. Here you see two master drawings side by side. The one on the left is for a 6-point font of this typeface called Merlin. And the one on the right is a 11-point master drawing. And so it's the same typeface, but two different sizes. And you can get a sense here of what they were doing to compensate for small sizes to make something still legible and work on a page. So for example, on the left, you see it's a little bit wider, it has a little bit heavier hairlines, and a little bit larger counter, that interior space. So it it really gives students a good sense of how type can be designed for individual sizes and all sorts of other stuff you can learn. We also collect graphic design process material, and by that I mean the sketches and mechanicals and all the kinds of work that goes into making the final piece. So here you see a book jacket by Philip Grushkin on the left. That's the final jacket, but on the right is his sketch and his, well, actually the final artwork for photography for that jacket, and then all of the color instructions that were given to the printer to print the jacket. This is from about 1955. We have a lot of collections that include this kind of process material, and you can learn a lot from that as a graphic designer. Even if you're only designing digitally, this analog process can really inspire us, teach us a lot. And then we have the corporate identity collection. This particular collection came from Dennis Ichiyama, who was a teacher at Purdue. And like Michael, Michael collected annual reports, and Dennis collected corporate identity manuals. And these are those big binders usually that tell you how to set the type or lay out the page to meet the requirements of visual identity. And he collected these for many decades and used them as teaching material for his classes at Purdue. And then when he retired, he donated these to us. So we're really fortunate to have over 200 of these identity manuals, which really are fascinating insight into history of design, but also inspirational tools for how to create our own visual identities and how to make educational material, because what these are essentially are teaching in-house designers how to design to meet this specific guideline. And then here's Michael visiting us in 2019. I've known him for a few years, get to see him at conferences and things like that. And but it was really a joy to have Michael and Rachel come visit us at the archive and show him around. Here he's looking at some process work for Emigre, the font company and design company who made the famous Emigre magazine. It was really an honor that he wanted to bring his annual report collection to the archive, and so that it can be preserved in the way that we're preserving, type specimens and annual or graphic design standards manuals and things like that. So here's just I got these right before the talk today from Rachel, some examples of that Michael would share on his Instagram. He had really good taste. He really collected things that showed off all of these facts and figures in an interesting way. And I think that's what annual reports, the main thing they can teach us is how to make numbers look interesting, and how to make people who are reading these reports feel a sense of confidence and engagement with the company that's producing them. So these are just a few examples of really nicely designed reports that he has in his collection. One of the things that we'll be doing is we'll be cataloging these so that they'll be easy to look for. We'll be highlighting issues that we feel have really significant design, and when we can get permission, we'll digitize those and put them online. And you can see that they can also just be really good samples of interesting design, and can guide you whether you're making an annual report or doing any kind of branding or editorial design. They have all sorts of little interesting tidbits of and techniques. So whether it's paper and bindings, or just how you show a page number, how you do embossing, like we saw earlier in the example that Michael showed. And what we do with these materials, again, is we use them in teaching. So here's Ellen Lepton, really great teacher and author, a curator, teaching a workshop at Letterform Archive using the standards manuals as a teaching tool. In this class, they actually designed their own manual using the the collection as reference. And I see this kind of thing happening with the annual reports as well. It's going to be really exciting to do classes where the annual reports can be a guide for both the teachers and the students. And so that kind of leads us to, where we are now. We just moved into this building. We're on the 4th floor there at the top of this building in the Dog Patch area of San Francisco, not far from where Rachel and Michael were. And we'll be doing we'll be kind of moving into this space. And once we can invite visitors back, you're going to be able to take classes there, explore the collection there, and see exhibits there. So that is the archive, and I'm just going to do a very quick run through of what the online archive is. This is what I was showing you a little snapshot of earlier. And this is kind of our way of bringing the collection to anyone in the world. So right now, anybody can access this. It's at oa.letterformarchive.org. And we have about 1,500 objects in the online archive right now. So if you go here to, first of all, you can get kind of an overview of some selected objects that we've brought to the top. But we also have these filters so that you can browse things by their category. So for example, format. I'm going to reload since I didn't have it open for a minute. So format, you get a sense here of what kinds of material that we're sharing. So type specimen, I can filter it to just that. And then I can go and filter it even more. So these are all the decades of type specimens that we have in the collection online right now. And I could say, oh, I just want to see stuff from, maybe I'm looking to do something, a new design that's historically referencing the 1940s. And maybe even also the 1950s, kind of that range. I can narrow down the collection of type specimens to that. And then I can go in and explore. And again, when we're doing this photography, it's all about the resolution and the reproduction. So we try to make this as load as quickly as possible, but also be as high resolution as possible. So you can zoom in and get some real detail here and pan around the objects. And also navigate down here through the metadata. So if you want to see other specimens of chalk, for example, you see there's another one here as well with some other typefaces. So the online archive is, we have 60,000 objects. We're now up to about 1,500 in the online archive. So it's a small portion of what our physical collection has, but it's growing every month. And we really encourage you to check it out. One of the things that you'll be able to do if you join as a member, and you can go to letterformarchive.org and join to see what membership's all about. And when you do join, you can put a note that you're interested in making that part of your donation to support Michael Stinson's collection at the archive. We have a little field there where you can add that. But when you're a member, you'll have access to some tools like this tables feature that we have. And what that will allow you to do is create your own sets within the online archive of materials. So kind of like mood boards, or maybe they're research tools for you, or maybe you want to use them for a class. But you could go to any collection. For example, I'm going to go here to this great stuff by Sylvia Abernathy, really amazing African-American designer, doing album covers before really any other Black women were credited for album cover design back in the 60s. And I can add it to a table. I go to my table here, I can rearrange it like this, and it becomes kind of like that physical experience of visiting Letterform Archive, where we set a table for you of material. You can start to set your own tables of material. You can add notes here. You can go into a kind of a full screen mode and navigate it that way as kind of a slideshow. But the whole idea is to try to give you this experience that you can't get in person right now because of the pandemic, or because you're in LA and you can't get to us right away. we really want people to be able to experience the archive wherever they are. So that's the goal with the online archive. So join, and you can make your own tables and tell us what you think about that. Yeah.
This is absolutely excellent. Thank you so much for showing us this online archive, Stephen. That is amazing. I think it could be such a useful tool for designers, whether you're UX design, UI design, doing graphic design. You know, like you need that inspiration there. If you're doing packaging, if you're doing annuals, if you're doing magazines, if you're doing editorial, this is something that can really inspire a lot of designers. We're looking for we're doing visual research all the time, you know, in our careers. And like right now we're looking at places where it's just like an echo chamber. So, you know, you look at, you Google an image and you're going to get the same results as you Pinterest search an image. You're going to get the same results on Adobe stock. Like there's not a lot of diversity out there. There's not a lot of uniqueness out there.
Yeah, and that's actually one thing we notice when people come to visit us in person, especially when they're these, maybe a tech company like Facebook or Apple will come to visit, and they're just hungry for new inspiration. They've been all over the web. They've seen all of the Pinterest boards. And they've also maybe seen something and they really love it, but they're only seeing, you know, a cropped image or a thumbnail image of that object. But when they see it in person, when they see it in real life, it can make a huge difference in how they experience it. Maybe it's not just the cover, but the whole book, or they see it at scale and they don't realize, I had no idea that this piece by Paul Rand was this large. And so that's the kind of experience we can only do in person, but we're trying to bring as much of that as we can to the online archive. And it's the same thing with the annual report collection. I mean, I'm really excited to bring out some of the highlights, some of the most interesting pieces from Michael's collection, and be able to share them with the world.
Yeah, that's something that impressed me. Like in the pictures, you know, they look like postcards, but when you see a person in there, you realize the size and the volume of them. It's very impressive.
Yeah, yeah, it makes a big difference. Also, just having a kind of a tactile feel of something and being able to hold it, that makes a big difference. Yep. Because you get a sense of what the real experience is of what the designer intended.
That's awesome.
Thank you so much for joining us. This has been fascinating. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, I think I went a little long, so I apologize for that, but it was fun.
It's all good. I think that was great. And we were planning to start, you know, our TypeCrit session around 8, so I think we nailed this.
Well, I'm happy to stick around for that if you want. I'd love to join in.
Oh, that'd be great.
How much is the membership?
Oh, so for students, the membership is only $30 a year. For an individual, it's $60, and then it goes up from there. There are lots of other benefits that you can get, such as reciprocal memberships at other museums if you go at the higher levels. But it's $30 or $60 a year. It's pretty inexpensive to get discounts on things in our shop and also get access to these kind of extra features in the online archive.
Nice.
And Remy, I see Remy here. Hi.
Yes. Yes, there's so many people that are admiring you in the background. I can't even keep up with all the comments. Rachel did have one quick question that I wanted to ask you. What are other collections that are being prepared at the Letterform archive right now? Anything in production?
Wow. Well, we've got a lot going on. So I mentioned that we've moved into this new space, and it provides a thing we haven't had yet, which is a gallery, a space just for exhibitions. So the first 2 exhibitions we're going to open with, and not many people know that we haven't really announced this publicly, so you guys will be among the first to hear. The first exhibition will be about the Bauhaus, you know, celebrating that 100-year anniversary with a really targeted look at the typography of the Bauhaus. We have a really big collection of a lot of works directly from those students and designers. And then the second collection or the second exhibition, I've had the honor of working with Silas Monroe on. He's in LA. He may have been to TypeThursday at some point. Teaches at Otis, and he is a great designer, curator, speaker. And he's going to be curating an exhibition on protest with us. And so we'll have a really nice overview of posters, of ephemera, books, all sorts of design around the concept of protest. And just this couple weekends ago, I got to spend some time with Silas going through the collection and deciding what will be exhibiting there.
Great, that's fascinating. So yes, so please, the Letterform archive, please donate, join, do what you can to support. If you're passionate about typography and everything that they're doing, I can't wait to donate. I knew about it, but I didn't know the extent of it, and now I have to support, because the work that you're doing is absolutely outstanding. So
thank you so much.
Congratulations.
And I hope you can visit sometime when it's possible, because you got to see it in person.
I cannot wait. It looks fascinating. So are we going to go into the TypeCrit?
Yeah, let's go back up to our, I think we have the deck. And we also have, we can hit the next on this one.
Okay.
There we go. So the critique format is going to be 5 minutes presenter shows work and 10 minutes our dialogue lead and discussion. And as audience members, you can submit your feedback, questions, or thoughts in the chat. So let us know. You'll be called out. And since we have Stephen on with us, we'll also have Stephen as a co-discussion lead. Michael?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So let's bring Zian on. She's a concept artist and designer, and she's actually going to present in our format that's, I have to switch over here, so bear with me for just 1 second.
No worries.
So I'm going to bring her on. Hello, Zian. Thank you for sitting patiently in the green room, as it were. So if you want to share right now, your letter, I believe that you're working with the letter C, correct?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna.
it's really nice to be here. Yeah. So my name's Yan Tan, and I'm a new member of AIGA. This is actually like my second meeting here, and
TypeThursday and AIGA.
Yeah. Yeah.
Glad to see you. Glad to see you made it through AIGLA. Come to TypeThursday community.
Yeah. I've always like wanted to join AIGA because I like have even though I'm like mostly an illustrator, I have like a really big interest in just like, you know, graphic design, and I really want to get better at doing and like making typography. I think it's like really interesting how much you can like, I guess, just do with it, and like how much it can like really affect like everything on a page. I know that sounds like really basic, but I don't know. But anyway, so like,
we all started there, by the way.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Recently I've just been working towards like, you know, learning like UI design, and also just trying to study more like UX design, and just like focusing on things like coding. I think those are like really useful skills and really cool to just like learn about. And I'm really just happy to be here, to be with like a group of really nice creatives. So yeah.
Welcome.
Glad to
welcome.
have you.
Thanks.
I should also clarify that AIGLA is the now design association of this, or is a design association for all designers, not just graphic design. We also encompass UX, type designers, illustrators. So we support you as well. You came to the right community, and then you met TypeThursdayLA through AIGLA, and now I'm so excited to have the Letterform archive too. I think, Stephen, we need to talk about some kind of community partnership here. Get everyone who knows TypeThursday and AIGLA know about the Letterform archive, because that's just graphic or design gold you got over there.
Yeah, I was like looking at it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like really cool. I think it's really cool that you have like so much information like that at like, you know, just the palm of your hands pretty much. So yeah, definitely like we'll check out that more too. So for my letter, I chose like a word for it too. I chose the word cheerful because I'm a pretty cheerful person. And so like for kind of like this visual inspiration mood board, I kind of put together things that just make me happy, I guess. I guess in this case, cheerful could also mean cute, but I mean, to me, they're pretty similar things. So yeah. I did some sketches of what I might want my letter C to look like, and I ran into some like I ran into some issues. Like because I know this has to be black and white, and so I wanted it to also be like readable on top of just being like cheerful or cute. So I looked at my designs and I was thinking of ways that I could like simplify them and also just like make it better so that I could like read it even at a smaller scale. So I ran through some things like that just like make me happy, like flowers, or a lot of these things ended up being kind of interesting because they naturally started with the letter C, like caterpillar, like Christmas lights, crescent moon, cat. You know, it's I thought it was kind of interesting, but I ended up settling with something like this child's like face in kind of like embedded in the letter C. I really like the negative space with it because even though I think it's quite similar to the crescent moon shape, it's slightly like different because I didn't want to just like make a C that was like the standard crescent moon, I guess. So yeah. And so I ended up playing around with the letter C, and I realized like, wow, you can like make so much of like a curvature in faces with the letter C. Like you can have like a really happy like eye with like a small letter C tilted. You can create a nose, you can create a smile. So I think that really like helps embody just cheerfulness. And so this is like the final glyph that I created. And then I also just did some like readability tests because I did want it to be able to be like readable even at a smaller size as like the letter C. I didn't want it to get so like crazy that it didn't look like a C anymore. So yeah, I was constantly checking that back and forth. So yeah, and this is just some of my work. As you can see, I kind of do like a mix of work, just like random Sailor Moon fan art, just portraits for myself. I also do a lot of stuff for like the film and television industry, so it's all on my website, and also just like me dabbling with like design and trying to do some UI stuff. So yeah.
Well, first off, let me say, well done. And I love if you can go back to your sketches.
Oh yeah, sure.
And I'm going to heap some praise on anybody who does this. The fact that you went back to pencil and paper and put out your thoughts and did not go with your first thought straight to the computer. And your work shows because you came to different conclusions. And I don't think you would have found that those little C's in there that made the nose, the ear, everything. And it's brilliant. It's really great. If this is the glyph of personality, it definitely reflects you. I mean, I've only met you in the past few minutes here, but I can see definitely your personality in this mark. So well done. I do want to pass it to Stephen for any comments that he has.
Yeah, I mean, clearly you are an artist. I mean, we saw it on the last slide, but I could see it here that you're using lots of different ways of taking the same form and representing all these different figures in it. I was really impressed with the bottom left one too. Just it isn't immediately figurative, but it has this motion and expression to it. I think that's really fun. One thing I thought you chose the right one to go with. I like that you're all about the negative space there, which we often talk about in type design and typography, is how important the negative spaces are. What I love actually about your sketch here is that you have kept it very illustrative. It's not so geometric. There's a lot of kind of emotion and playfulness in that. And I think you can bring more of that into your final, which is good too. But I think it would be interesting to have a little bit more of that kind of organic shape in it and not try to make it so much like the geometric C, but bring in more of your amazing artistic talent that you have.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll definitely like keep that in mind. I really do like, I love looking at those alphabets where someone's like illustrated a different thing to represent each of those like letters. So I think I could definitely like bring some of that playfulness, the illustrative feature to it.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I would buy an alphabet book like this for sure. I mean, you've got talent and a lot of creativity, and I think you should, just don't be afraid to let it be more of an illustration than a typeface.
Right.
And I want to just do a little plug for my wife, who's going to be giving a talk at A-Type-I coming up here at the end of the month, because she really loves to combine illustration and lettering like this. And I think you would love to hear and see the kind of work that she does. I'll put her her website up in the chat, but I think you have a lot of that same kind of talent where you're bringing both art and lettering together. Very cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Before I pass it to Mateo, I want to give a special notice. I didn't see it the first time, but the cat in the middle, second over from the right. And actually, I wouldn't have seen the C's if I wouldn't associate it with it. But I was like, that I love that one. I would definitely work those at one of them, because that's amazing. So very well done.
That's one of the advantages of with like an alphabet book or a word, is that you don't have to be immediately representing a C. In context, it's fine as long as the basic shape is there.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. I might like do a whole alphabet like this then.
Yeah. Why not? It's beautiful. Mateo?
Absolutely, yes. I was thinking the same thing. I could see you sitting down and doing a whole alphabet book with this, and that would be you asked earlier, how do you design typeface? How do you professionally go about doing that and publishing that? And I think this is how, right? It all starts with your sketches, a prompt, a challenge, and keep doing this for the rest of the alphabet, and like you would have an amazing book at the end, I think. I also agree with Michael. I'm a cat daddy, so I love the cat. I have 4 cats of my own. My mom, my dad, my 2 boys. It's a big cat family. So I would love to see a whole letter set out of cats, which I've seen before on the web, but your take on it is so cute there. But I definitely was drawn to the upper right, which is the crescent moon, and the face in the negative space, because I felt like your combination there, that you really had this concept here, and it repeats a little bit, and then you brought it into the final execution. But the final execution was just much more like programmatic, square, blocky, whereas this was very like feminine, like illustrative, emotional. The other one is very like, I think you can go a different route. That could be the C you made is like a whole nother direction, but like follow this direction, I think, more. And like even in Japanese design, ukiyo-e era, they were very much about carving out the negative space on the page. It's all about designing the negative space, not the positive. And in this, you found this balance of designing with a negative space. And I think that's just awesome. I would love to see more clever letters like this with the negative space, play on the negative space.
Yeah. So go to your mark. Go to your mark. So like that's a great point, because it's like, see, it all works, and you probably played it safe that it worked, right? Now you can start refining it and making it, get those little edges out, and where it seems rigid. I mean, even turning the eye so it's like it's not perfectly at 90 degrees. Maybe at some sort of other angle. It kind of gives it a little bit more play. But yeah, just beautiful work, absolutely. And Maxwell loved the personality from the clever use of the negative space. I wish the letter form itself could carry some of that personality as well. Exactly what we were just saying. So yeah, so just amazing work. And actually, I wanted to go back to this. If you saw this before, this is Laura's website, so definitely check her out. And Rachel says she is amazing, and she might be talking about you, Zian, as well. So I'm sure.
Yeah, I'll definitely check it out. Yeah, that sounds like right up my alley, and I definitely will keep all this the critique in mind, because I definitely agree with just bringing in more of the personality. I do think when I was making this, I wasn't too sure how I should handle it, because I've never made a letter before too, and just I also think maybe my sense of just knowing what's the appropriate type isn't so strong, just because I don't work with it as much. And now that you guys bring up how blocky it is, I totally see it now. So yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, so maybe the head needs to be just a little bit so there's a little bit of forehead. It's just that slight variance in it could give it just a little slight personality.
Right, got it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of it just comes down to the goal. If you're making something that's seen one letter at a time or in one word at a time that's very illustrated, don't worry so much about being typographic or making it look like a font. I think you should let your personality and your creativity show, and let the illustration come first. And I think as long as in a context it works, you won't have to worry so much about it looking like something that was typed out with a typeface.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so great presentation. Thank you so much. And thank you for this being only the second time you've been to Type Thursday. Thank you for jumping in. We try to encourage more people to do that, and that's how I got. Rachel actually jumped me in quite a few years ago. She says, "You're going and you're presenting," so that's how I did it too. And now look at me.
Yeah.
So
thank you so much, Zion, for bringing this here. I also wanted to echo I don't know if you ever saw when Google relaunched their logo and they did that logo design announcement, where they went from a serif to a sans serif font. That was a big deal. It made a big splash in the design world, especially on design Twitter, which broke down about the fact that it's not optically geometrically perfect.
Yeah.
It's not geometrically perfect. That was the thing. And then people were like, it's not mathematically correct. Where's the perfection? But from the designer side, we saw that the designer went with what was optically right, which was because letter forms are imperfect. And it's just, that is the nature. They're like extensions of our bodies. As I was saying earlier, it's based on our own existence and experience and how we interpret the world around us. And it's not geometrically perfect. And in this execution, you went geometrically perfect. But in your illustrations, you were very much you had the illustrative style and the imperfections there. And I think that's the style that you could drive forward and digitize it. Beautiful.
Yeah, thanks. I'll definitely keep that in mind and try more with that more hand-drawn sort of look to it. So thank you for telling me that. I think that really helps me make more design decisions in the future. Yeah, thank you.
you got it.
Absolutely.
You got it. Thank you so much for jumping in.
Well, you're super talented.
Yeah, high praise right there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Zion. Thank you so much. So, did Sarah jump on in the background? Is that what I'm seeing, or is she gonna present? Or wait, are we not having her? I just see her in the background. So, do we have anybody else?
Yes, I think Sarah's ready to go. Let's bring her in and post it there. I also want to say too, TypeThursdayLA, we're encouraging everyone, if you've never tried with Type, try it out. Bring it to us. We want to see your attempt. We want to help you grow. We want to help you learn. And if you have questions, you could always submit them to us. And if you would like to submit work to present, you could submit work at Los Angeles at TypeThursday.org. So, or just reach out to myself. Check out our website, TypeThursday.org, and contact myself or Michael, and we'll get you in the lineup to present work. We'll be bringing presentation rounds again in November.
Okay, so Sarah, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. I can't show my face because I had an allergic reaction to ice cream and now this is swollen. Anyway, I'm here.
No worries.
No worries, no whatsoever.
Yeah.
Now, do you have your presentation on your desktop? Because you can present it.
I do, but I think it might be easier since you have it in your deck, I think.
Oh, I don't have it in my deck. So if you can.
Okay, yeah, I'll just use my screen. Okay.
That way you can go through it.
Sorry, here's a moment of technical difficulty as we. Okay, so how do I share my screen?
Okay,
How do I share my screen on here?
So at the bottom is the share screen.
Okay, just a second. Let me pull up my presentation.
Rachel says ice cream. Sounds like it was worth it. It probably was.
It was totally worth it. Okay.
So while you're doing that, Rachel has a question.
Yeah. There we go.
When will the Alphabet in Motion, a pop-up book for typophiles, be published?
Oh, good question, Rachel. I'm super excited about that. That's Kelly Anderson's book she's doing for us, Alphabet pop-up book. And I think the plan is second half of next year, but don't quote me on that. They're still working through comps and prototypes and things like that. It's going to be cool though.
Great. Okay, Sarah, you're up.
Okay, so I'm presenting. So I'm still in school, and I'm presenting a monogram that I'm doing for a classwork, and it's still in development. I'm kind of at a point where I'm still refining it. So you're coming into the middle of the process, and yeah, I just wanted to share it with you and get some advice. So we're supposed to make this monogram for class using our initials. My initials are S and W. And we were supposed to come up with an elevator pitch for it and have like 3 words that go along with it. So for my monogram, I wanted something that kind of reflected my personal growth because, you know, I've been going through a lot of changes lately after graduating from my undergraduate, which was not graphic design, and then trying to become a graphic designer. And so, yeah, I wanted a monogram that would show like flexibility and quirkiness and transformation. You know, quirkiness as you kind of like grow into yourself and become more comfortable with your creativity. And I made like little mood boards and research for all of that. And so I could have some visuals. And I looked at other monograms that other people have done for the initials SW on Google. So I'm basic. And then I also like looked at logos or monograms that I really enjoyed or was inspired by. And just like, you know, good use of space, good use of graphics, etc. And here's some of my rough sketches. As you can tell, a lot of them are really graphic, which my teacher did not like because it is a type class. And she said that I needed to get a little more, think a little more about the type form itself. So out of all of these, which had a lot of pictures, she chose these 4. She thought these were good. And yeah, I just wanted to know like where I should take it from here. Some things that she said at least were like, okay, so for like the monogram in the upper left-hand corner, she's like, that could be really good if you get all the diagonals to line up. So like the diagonal on the S, the diagonal on the W, and the diagonal on the short part of the W. She said she liked the one in the bottom left-hand corner because it kind of like has this part where the S meets the W, but not quite. And like me playing with that relationship that is kind of rare to see would be really interesting. Yeah, she thought she liked the idea of the S connecting to the W. But yeah, I'm like kind of thinking about what I can do moving forward. I'm actually thinking of going back and redoing the sketches just because like I think when you're thinking really quickly and sketching really quickly, it's easy to kind of fall back on your crutches. And like my crutch is like just doing a lot of drawings. I really like being illustrative, but you know, I want to also get good at like typography itself, and like that's not going to help me. So I might like go back and do some more sketches if you guys think that's a good idea. If you guys think there's something really cool right here, you know, let me know. And if there's like some sort of relationship you'd really like to see between the S and the W, let me know. And also, are there any things I should very definitely avoid? Because, you know, I'm new. I don't know all the pitfalls about like type. Like there's always something I'm learning. I didn't know what overshot was when I first like messed around with type, and people were like, why are your O's so small? So if you have something like that to tell me about an S or a W, please tell me. And yeah, how do I get my teacher to think I'm a really great student? Because I messed up a little bit last time and she did get a little bit annoyed. And so I just really like to get in her good graces and make her like me as a student. So if you have any advice on that, let me know. Thank you.
So I'm going to let Stephen go first because I actually have, I'm not going to be long-winded, but I have an opinion, but I'm more fascinated by what Stephen has, his overall scope of it. Can you put it back up,
Oh,
Sarah?
yeah, sorry. Sorry. Yeah.
So Sarah, out of the 3 or out of the 4 that you ended up with, those were selected by the teacher, not by you, correct?
Yeah.
Do you feel like so the goal of this is to represent your personality? Do you feel like these do that, all of them?
I think the upper left-hand one and the lower right-hand one, I think, are the most effective. Actually, I really like the lower right-hand one because it's kind of like a path that just keeps on going in weird ways.
Well, yeah, you mentioned quirky, and I think that's definitely the quirkiest one on here. And I just asked that because sometimes after you've had your head in a project for a long time, you just forget what the original brief was. I do that all the time. Like, what was I really trying to get to? And I remember your initial thing saying that you want to represent your personality and your where you are in life right now. And I think if you feel that kind of solution is the one that's, feels most representative of you, I would focus in on that and try to refine that one. And so if you were to go that route, I think one really, really useful thing to learn, and maybe you don't have time for it on this project, but I would start practicing some calligraphy, because what you're doing here is very calligraphic. It's all about connecting letter forms. It's about learning how to use flourishes, which is, the little curly Q at the end of the W. It's about knowing where the thick and the thin parts of the letters are. And when you start learning calligraphy, you get a much more confident feeling about what to do with those kinds of elements, those decorative elements. But if you don't have the time to do that for this one, what I would look at is some script typefaces or some calligraphy. We have some calligraphy in the online archive. You can check it out there. You can just search calligraphy. There's a bunch of stuff. But look for stuff that is connecting in a really interesting way and that has flourishes. And you can start to see where to put the weight in the letter, because that's where you're going to start to get something that is more recognizable as an SW. Because I think that's your biggest challenge here with this particular one, is to make sure it reads as an SW. But I would start with the solution first that meets the brief, that feels like it's your personality, and then refine it using some, calligraphic fundamentals.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Mateo, did you want to go before me?
So yeah, I'll just go down the feedback questions, Sarah. So which monogram do I like the best? I definitely like the SW where the S almost meets the W. And second pick would be the upper right, which is like the blocky form that you worked on that's more geometric. One of the things I really like about that form there is that it's the most unrefined, therefore it has the most potential of exploration in how you approach it. And it also meets the requirement of this monogram typographic thinking, right? For your teachers to be happy, the others being more calligraphy style, then yeah, you're leaving the realm of making a typeface. Do you have any ideas or creative directions that you could take on those? I think if you explore the upper right, that geometric form more, you can also play with how would you cut up the S in ways that follow the angle of the W. So the negative space starting in the S leads to the negative space in the W. So again, we're talking about working with the negative space of the forms here. That would be really cool to see. And any type crimes to avoid, definitely legibility, kerning pairs, don't awkwardly hit the S when you're working on that form to the W's beginning of the W, right? Make sure there's a nice amount of space. Like imagine when you pour water between the S and the W, and you want that volume to fill up nice and evenly from each character. And then, yeah, I think that pretty much hits it. Great work.
Yeah. And I also, I feel that I don't think you're sold on any of these, Sarah. So that's going to be a big part of it. I think that he picked them because he saw something in it. So what I feel that could be kind of something that could help this is I feel like none of these have a container that they're in. So they're all kind of have the outside shape of it. They're all kind of like one's like a rectangle, like one's kind of wonky. But if you contained it maybe in a circle, an oval, a square, and then made the use of that space, that would make it more interesting. So like, like the upper one, the S seems to kind of be just kind of hanging out there, and it's, it's connected to the W, but it just seems like, it's kind of loose. But I think if they were positioned where they had some sort of more dynamic shape to them within another shape, I think that you would have your monogram. And something where it would almost be like mirroring it, in a sense. But so they really, the letters come together, and they're actually, so you're kind of doing that with the lower left as well. And then but the lower right one has like a really cool like thing to it, but it seems to be another element. So it's just kind of like more of it. So I think if you contained it to a shape, then you would start getting more of what they're looking for. So like, it would go like on, a shirt or on a cap or something like that. Like how are monograms used? So look at it that way as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Also, I think like Maxwell was like in the comments, and he goes to like Art Center, and I'm going to Art Center at night. So like maybe, I don't know, Art Center people are real picky about their type. So like, if he has anything to say, like he should say it.
Are you intimidated by that?
Yeah, because I sometimes feel like they're so like, sometimes I feel like, at least with my teacher, I feel like she's so advanced. Like, she doesn't quite remember what it's like to just kind of like not have taste. Yeah, like she just knows so much about history and like typefaces. Sometimes I feel like she's kind of like, why would you choose that? And I'm like, I don't know, like it felt right to me. Like I feel like there's like this emotion coming out of this that like relates to mine. But I feel like she has kind of like these standards that I don't know about for like choosing type, and like this kind of historical knowledge about like, the context around this that I just like simply do not.
Yeah, this is a problem that I'm going to have to apologize to my, from my kind to newbies, and that I'm part of that group that tends to be very nitpicky. Knows a lot of type history, and it's hard to think outside of our bubble, and that's why I think it's good for us to remember that the only way that you can get better is by sketching, drawing, writing, doing calligraphy, and then looking at a lot of examples of that and examples of type. The only way you get better is by training your eye. And so it is hard when somebody who has already trained their eye just says, well, why don't you know that? But so I totally understand where you're coming from, and I don't think it's your fault. It's you're new at it, and it's just a matter of learning to train your eye by both doing it and looking at a lot of examples of it.
Yeah, I think also one of the things that your teacher is also trying to do is not letting you get away with, this is my first thing. The first thing that I came up with. They're really trying to push you to kind of, no, push it. What else can you think of? Yes, you've thought of 30, think of 60. So it's like, I have that in my head as well. So it's like, it's just from, creative directors and mean bosses that told me that I was doing it all wrong. But yeah, graphic design sometimes is an endurance test, and only, the strong survive. And so like you're going to get that from people that they're not going to have a lot of patience maybe for people who don't want to think that way. So just know that it's not, I'm sure that it's, I don't know your teacher personally, but I don't think it's to be mean. I think it's to push your creativity and really have you learn to solve the problem in a more efficient manner. And that's what we do every day. We solve problems.
Yeah.
Just as a tip for how to get to understand type better, I recommend this to everybody, and it's something that they learn at a lot of different type design schools, including Type West and Type and Media in The Hague. It's this website called typecooker.com. And what it does is just gives you a recipe. So it says, draw something that is extra bold, has very short descenders, and is tightly spaced. And then you're forced to then do one word that fits all of those criteria. And the more you do that, and the more different kinds of criteria that you learn to draw, and if you do it regularly, like do it once a day or twice a day, then the more your eye is trained and the more your ability is trained at kind of solving typographic problems in different ways. Even if you're not going to be a type designer, it helps you to see type in a better way and to do lettering and monograms and things like that.
Yep.
Thanks. This is like so helpful.
Yeah. And it just drown yourself in the research, and suddenly you'll see the S and W come right leaping at you. You're like, that's a great lockup.
Yeah, and when I said look at calligraphy, there's a specific era of calligraphy that is probably really informative for this style, and that is from this period that we called them writing books or writing manuals, and it's from about 1700s, 1600s up to the 1800s, and they often had very flourishing writing, but the simpler versions of that can actually be quite legible, and they can inform you of how you can make this S and W connect in an interesting way.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Okay. Well, thank you, Sarah, for presenting. I mean, I don't think you have nothing here. I think you have something for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to echo on the research part, because Rachel dropped a comment in there as well. It's like, you need at least a minimum of 50 explorations to be, to say you've explored the problem, and 100 is good as well, because it's going to take you even further. And with the research, the more you have that visual research, the easier it is to come up with those, different iterations of this idea. So yeah, there's definitely more research and sketching that could be done.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you did great. Thank you for joining. All right. So, are you going to present, or we're going to go to the end, Matteo?
I think that we can go to the end of the deck. Yeah. No person. Yeah. Awesome. Well, this has been an amazing night, and if you all want to see us again in November, then like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, hit us up on Twitter, and definitely sign up for the newsletter. You'll be getting things in your inbox like Type 1, who we've partnered with at TypeThursday Global to help get the word out about their amazing magazine they're publishing of just rare and unique typography forms that are emerging right now. It's this curated magazine. Get it mailed straight to your house. Get the subscription if you're that enthusiastic. You get 2 a year. And you can check them out by looking for Type 1. And you can also drop a link later on. So yeah, next. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Check us out on our website. Follow us. We're a global organization, TypeThursday.org. This has been an amazing night. We love bringing together people who love typography and letter forms. We've been given so much education and wisdom from Stephen Coles. Thank you so much for sharing the Letterform archive. I'm just blown away and inspired, and I hope everyone else is too.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for being a guest tonight. Don't forget, if you'd like to donate, you can donate to Letterform Archive. You can sign up to be a member. All the donations right now are definitely helping out the Michael Stinson annual report collection. It's what you saw tonight, you're helping to archive. So please support and bring the support. We're going to be fundraising October and November. Our goal is 1,000, and we want to push the bar even higher. So send those donations if you can. Also, we'll be trying to make some merchandising. So if you've got ideas for merchandising, let us know. We also want to do some cool merch stuff, stickers, shirts. We want to find other ways to fundraise for this project, for the Letterform Archive, in the time between now and November. So yeah, let us know. You can hit me up an email, losangeles@typethursday.org. And that's it from me, guys. Any closing notes from you all?
No, it's been a pleasure. Thank you, Stephen, for joining us. We'd love to have you back, and we'd love to have an update on eventually, maybe next year, about how actually when we can actually see the archive of Michael's work. So that we'll definitely check in with you again.
Yeah, that would be great. I'd love to give an update sometime down the road when we've been able to photograph and catalog some of it and show how we're using it.
Fantastic.
Thanks so much for the invitation.
And thank
thanks
you
to
everybody in the
Rachel
chat and
for
watching.
setting up.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Good night, everyone. And we will see you next month. Look for the Eventbrite and check out all of our social media, Facebook and Instagram. Take care. Good night.
Good night, everyone.